Thank you, viewers, for joining us. I'm Karaga Bodwins, and this is NTV. We're coming to you live from the Kampala International Conference Center, and we are disrupting normal programming because of a very essential discussion about the economic development of our nation. So let's have this preface just to make sure that we build the context of our discussion that we're going to have tonight.
Tourism is Uganda's leading foreign exchange earner, with $1.37 billion having been realized in 2016. It is increasingly becoming an important sector in supporting the economic diversification of the Uganda economy. The sector over the past years has successfully grown in terms of visitor arrivals, conference business, and investment in the hospitality sector. It is also becoming a key source of livelihood in the economy. Uganda's tourism largely rides on her natural endowments, which gives an edge over many of the popular tourist destinations in Africa. Some of the key attractions include wildlife, culture, water bodies, and faith-based attractions like Uganda Martyrs. Uganda has more than 50% of the world's remaining population of mountain gorillas, over 1,060 birds, which is 11% of the global population of the bird species, amongst others. The country has 10 national parks, wildlife reserves, 10 wildlife sanctuaries, 5 community wildlife management areas, among others. The top 10 source markets for Uganda, contributing close to 85% of total tourist arrivals, include Kenya, DRC, Tanzania, USA, Burundi, United Kingdom, South Sudan, India, and South Africa. The sector's direct contribution to GDP was 2.6%, amounting to over 2.4 trillion Uganda shillings. Total contribution of the industry to GDP along the supply chain and induced income impacts was 6.6% of GDP, amounting to over $6 billion in 2016, and it generated $1.37 billion as forex earnings in the same year. The sector has also created over 191,000 jobs directly and a total of 504,000 jobs along the value chain, which is 5.8% of the total employment in the economy. Uganda experienced phenomenal international recognition during the 2017 financial year. US-based CNN named Uganda among the world's top tourism destinations for 2017. Cedp National Park was nominated for World Travel Awards as Africa's leading national park. Uganda ranked as 4th best country to visit in Africa by the Rough Guides, a UK leading travel publisher. Cedp National Park was also named Best Safari Park to visit in Africa by CNN, and Uganda was named the most welcoming country by Internations. The state of Uganda's wildlife is as follows. It has over 11% of the global bird diversity, which is 50% of Africa's bird species. 7% of the global mammal diversity, which is 39% of Africa's mammal richness. 19% of Africa's amphibian species, 14% of Africa's reptile species, and 53.9% of the global population of the remaining mountain gorillas. Uganda's tourism sector is under the docket of the Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities, mandated to oversee and coordinate the tourism sector. The ministry works with tourism agencies like Uganda Wildlife Authority, Uganda Tourism Board, Uganda Wildlife Education Center, and the Uganda Hotel and Tourism Training Institute. As to enhance the understanding of the current tourism potential in Uganda, the interventions being undertaken by government, and what the role of the private sector plays in harnessing this potential is, NTV, in partnership with the Competitiveness and Enterprise Development Project, have organized this detailed discussion tonight. Have a concurrent participation in this discussion on our Twitter and Facebook pages. Tourism is Uganda's leading foreign exchange earner, with $1.37 billion.
And thanks for keeping with us and for keeping us as your number one station. I'm once again Karagawa Baldwins. And in studio tonight, indeed, we're discussing that particular preface that we've made. And online, on our Facebook and on our Twitter account, we've posted a question which I want you to just to interact with us as we are having the live discussion here in studio. I'll be coming on and citing these particular comments that you're making. We've asked what can be done to improve the tourism sector in Uganda. So share your views there, and along the way, I'll be citing your responses. So in studio tonight, I have a phenomenal team of experts who are dealing with this field of tourism in Uganda. And on my extreme end of this particular table, I have Mr. James Lutalo, the Director of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities. James, you're welcome.
Thank you for inviting me.
Indeed. And next to him is Herbert Byaruhanga, the Chairperson, Uganda Safari Guides Association and Vice President, Uganda Tourism Association. Herbert, you're welcome.
Thank you very much. Good evening, viewers.
Indeed. And right next to me is Stephen Asimwe, Chief Executive Officer, Uganda Tourism Board. Great. So let's get started. And let me start with you, James. So we have the 2014 and the 2024 Uganda Master Plan for Tourism that was developed. And it stipulates that it's supposed to serve as a guideline on how to enhance the development of the tourism sector by increasing foreign receipts to more than $2 billion and per annum, and creating over about 150,000 jobs. Just help give a certain explication on how this was developed, this particular plan, and how these particular ambitions came about. So.
Thank you, Baldwins.
Yeah.
The ministry, driven by our overall mandate of overseeing, monitoring, and coordinating the sector, we have a residual role of developing policies, plans, and strategies. Informed by that, and also by the comprehensive national development planning framework, which recognizes the existence of the 30-year strategic vision that is implemented by national development plans. So the National Development Plan 1 did identify the tourism sector as one of the productive sectors. The other factor that we took into account are the existing policies. One that informed the development of the national the Tourism Master Plan is the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda. The various policies that we have the tourism policy of 2014, we have the wildlife policy of 2015, we have the museums and monuments policy. We also have the attendant acts that give effect to these policies. Now, a number of consultations were undertaken with stakeholders to identify the issues and therefore the strategies that would need to be identified. We are glad to report that we got assistance from UNWTO, UNDP, the Ministry of Technical Staff and others, and developed the Tourism Master Plan. And in a nutshell, you're right, it helps us determine the strategies that will help us increase tourist arrivals, create jobs and employment, and increase the contribution of tourism to GDP. In effect, this Tourism Master Plan is implemented by Tourism Sector Development Plan, 5-year Tourism Sector Development Plans. The first, the NDP1 is being implemented by the current tourism, I beg your pardon, the second National Development Plan is implemented by the current Tourism Sector Development Plan that focuses on removing the bottlenecks to achievement of our intended successes. So what do we want to achieve? We want to undertake tourism planning and management, especially focusing the areas within the country, looking at regional tourism hubs that we have referred to as tourism development areas within the plan. We look at these areas being close to attractions like national parks, like Kampala City because it's the capital. We look at tourism destination marketing to ensure that we have a presence in the key source markets. The master plan addresses issues of infrastructure, including the roads, the aerodromes, the tourist stopovers along highways, and a host of other infrastructure. You must have heard that we want to develop cable cars on the Rwenzoris. The other issues we look at are the conservation of the natural and cultural heritage. The master plan also looks at product development. We want to diversify our products so that we make our tourists stay longer, they have activity, spend more, and therefore leave money in the economy. Among the new products we are looking at is the Lake Victoria Tourism Circuit. To exploit the potential that exists within our water bodies. We have a look at the source of the Nile. We've recently come up with a master plan. We look at our historical monuments. The Mugaba Palace, we are trying to develop it into a product. We look at the expansion of the National Museum through the use of ICT. We look at other regional museums and also regional satellite wildlife education centers. The master plan looks at human resource development, and among the issues in there you have our institutions, the Hotel and Tourism Training Institute, the Uganda Wildlife Research and Training Institute. The master plan focuses on issues of tourism financing and investment.
Okay, so James, just because I need us now to go into the real practicalities. So the plans actually sound, the reporting is that you have too much planning.
Yes.
And now we need to know how that planning is pretty implemented. We're going to come back into the nitty-gritties of the details that you're trying to mention on that. Okay. So let me just follow up on that question very to Stephen and ask him about the tourism promotion campaign. Of course, Uganda Tourism Board's mission, is states that it's to develop, promote, and coordinate a sustainable and competitive tourism industry. Apparently, we have 1.3 million something, tourist arrivals as of 2016, and you want to make sure that you expand that. So give us what is being done in terms of promotion and of ensuring that actually we realize part of this particular master plan ambitions.
Thanks, Baldwin. That's a very good question. Like Mr. Lutalo has built a very good foundation. We have come a long way. The last 10 years, tourism has grown by over 50% in terms of arrivals and the figures that come with it. Within all this framework is the fact that we are guided by the Tourism Master Plan 2014-2024. And from that, we have drawn, we're in the final stages of completing our marketing strategy, which essentially identifies our key products. Like the video that played before, Uganda is very much endowed in all facets. 10 national parks, 12 game reserves, the 3rd, 4th, and 5th highest mountains, a very rich culture, heritage, history, good weather, bird species, etc., etc. Now, within all of that, we are driven by the fact that we want more visitors to come, spend more, and actually stay longer. And to that extent, we look at the key source markets from a global perspective. In the last 2 years, we did hire companies to represent Uganda in what we call key source markets. We call them MDRs, Market Destination Representations. And that strategy is enshrined in 2 ways. We target travel trade, the people who are responsible for bringing tourists from foreign countries to Uganda, working with our tour and travel companies. And we did hire companies in North America. We have a company called PHG that is based in New York, and it's managing USA and Canada. We have another company which is representing us on behalf of Uganda. Okay. Another company is representing us in the UK and Ireland, and then what we call the English-speaking countries. Yeah. And then we have another company representing us in the German-speaking, Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. And basically their work is 2 or 3-fold. One, engage the travel trade in those countries with our travel trade here. So link them up so that they talk the travel business, because tourism is a business, it's a trade. The second thing they do is they do public relations and visibility. The video that was played earlier showed that Uganda is now rated top in CNN, Rough Guides. We've been on Financial Times, we've been on Toronto Star, we've been on some of the big media companies, is to create that visibility that shows Uganda.
Is that a PR stance that is developed by the PR organization?
Yes, that is part of their terms of reference. Now, I will tell you, for instance, that when we have negative travel advisories, the responsibility of the MDRs is to go and engage the audiences in those places to ensure that they highlight the good things that are happening in Uganda. Uganda is a safe country, good place to visit, there's food, there's infrastructure, etc., etc. And because of their coming to Uganda and being a part of this, they travel around this place. We do what we call farm trips, familiarization trips. They're able to go back, write authoritatively, and because of that, we've seen a trajectory of increase in terms of tourist arrivals. Now we've expanded that portfolio now. We're hiring another 3 to the Gulf states, which are big spenders. You know, Gulf states like United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Kuwait, Oman. We're going to China for the first time. We are going to get a representation. We're going to Japan. These are big spenders, and they love what we have as a product. Now that's in terms of the foreign. Secondly, Bolden, very quickly, we also now are engaging all our over 30 missions and embassies that represent us abroad. We do market destination training. We engage the staff so that they become our ambassadors. They project us, they go for travel trade, they go for missions, and they engage other players, airlines, media houses, etc. And then there's what we call consumer groups. Consumer groups are big players. Like Herbert will be telling you shortly, there's a huge group of birders, people who love birding. Uganda is home to over 50% of Africa's bird species. So when these consumer groups come here, they're able to then influence back home that portfolio, that segment, that constituency of travelers that like that particular thing. So that is on the side of international. We're now also looking at new modern ways of engaging on the internet, on social media or digital marketing. Now that is low budget, high impact kind of marketing. So, so one of the things we've seen is over 70% of the travelers actually search a destination by internet. So we do destination optimization on search engines. We look at intensive social marketing, social media awareness, etc. And then on the domestic front, we take advantage of the domestic days, the big events, Easter, Labor Day, like the one which is coming. And then, of course, the big events like Uganda Martyrs, Jananum Day, Uganda, the Women's Day. So those are festive seasons, holiday times where people go for excursions and are able to expose them to the different facets that we have in the tourism industry.
Wow, a very contentful marketing campaign. Yeah, we'll continue over that, and thanks. It's very elaborate and quite informative. Herbert, so you represent the private sector, and you're so fascinated and engrossed in the birding business. We have the tourism sector report, I think, in 2016-17, indicated that tourism was the leading foreign exchange earner, and just next to the remittances from abroad, and the direct contribution to GDP was $2.4 billion US. Pretty incredible. So we need to understand, how does the private sector itself contribute to this enormity of the productivity of the tourism sector, and what does the government, our government plans and private sector tourism industry needs in sync with each other to make sure that actually we meet the aspirations that we're having in this sector?
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Now, the figures you are showing us here of the earnings, I must proudly say that private sector contributes probably 95% of those earnings.
And Stephen is a representative of government, Uganda.
Yes, because
Tourism Board.
He does.
We facilitate them.
He does, but we do the work, the real foot soldier work.
Yes.
And how do we do this? We provide jobs in the private sector. You can imagine we have over 500,000 employees with their jobs in the tourism sector, and of these, about 200,000 are direct employees. And of course, this number is growing, is ever growing, and that is from the private sector. We produce at the same time and consume those workers. Now, again, fortunately, of all these jobs I'm talking about, 90% depend on the foreign tourists. So to get these, the private sector travel. They travel all over the world looking for tourists. And you may find also that each company employs averagely 8 people. And I think now the highest employer is about 35 to 40 employees in the office, one tour company. So we provide employment. And all these people we have who are employed, they also pay taxes, they feed their families. It's quite a very big contribution which trickles down to the lowest person, because we are all over the place anyway. And also we have hotel establishments which total up to about 5,000 hotels and lodges, restaurants around the country. And all these employ people and provide services. Now, if they don't employ people who are committed to give good services, we cannot have this number, that figure of income we've just talked about. And how does this work out? Sometimes we also provide infrastructure. We build hotels, we build lodges, restaurants. We bring in vehicles, we import vehicles in whatever form, much as later maybe I would say that we are poor, but we still bring in vehicles. We still do the marketing and selling of Uganda. Wherever we go there to market Uganda. In whatever form, we still travel, make sure that we go and attract people to come into the country.
But do you feel that the plans that the Uganda Tourism Board, the ministry itself that has, are supportive of actually your efforts?
Oh yeah, they do. That's why I'm coming to tell you that we're even very, very happy with government for even putting money in Cedp. The Cedp project has helped so many people here. There was a matching grant, which I think tourism was the leading beneficiary of this grant, because so many tour companies went there to get money for investment in marketing, investment in software development, a lot of benefit from the government. That was really a milestone into the tourism business. But also we hosted the first ever African Birding Expo in this country. And now Uganda is ranked among the countries that organized international birding expos. Last week I got an invitation to go to Taiwan, to attend another one. Last year I was in Colombia. I was invited to attend the one for South America Bird Fair, because they know Uganda has come out to do these things. So Cedp did a great job, because if it wasn't a push of the government synchronizing it with our interest with these new products, we wouldn't have gone anywhere. We have a school coming out to train our people. HTTI is coming up. They did the groundbreaking last week. This is real, the sync we are talking about. The government is paying attention to the demands for skills, which we need. The policy is very, very, very important for us. Otherwise, if we don't go that way, then the private sector will be left hanging. And then my colleague talked about the PR farms. The PR farms coming in as a government contribution paves the way for us. If I'm going to USA and somebody has been talking about it, about Uganda, then I have where to begin from. Somebody's already there. So if they say now they're increasing to 5 more PR farms, that's fantastic. The contribution definitely will be very, very important. But also I must say that the private sector also now, with our economy, with its challenges, the private sector provides startup capital. People start small, and they build. 5 years, 10 years, they take off, they get businesses. So that startup capital is very, very important, because our country, with its system, we didn't have any money to give out to private sector to everybody to start business. But now the startup capital is coming out from the private sector, and it is very, very important.
Okay, thank you indeed. It sounds phenomenally really great that the private sector is part of the base of ensuring that it fuels the the trajectory that is needed to develop this sector. And James, in that very regard, so we need to understand especially the local capacity development of this private sector itself. We are looking at the top 10 source markets for Uganda, contributing to close 85% of total tourist arrivals, include Kenya, DRC. Most of them are actually within the regional element. So how do we help to develop the local sector itself in the tourism sector business to be competitively placed, as stated, of course, in the ambitions of the master plan 2014-2024, to ensure that we can be able to do far much better than our neighbors, that most of the tourists actually keep on coming here. And
as a ministry, we do recognize that there are trade associations. We, as government, play the residual role of policy, and we do recognize that it is the private sector, especially through the associations, that organize in order to contribute to the tourism business.
Yeah, some of those associations, the Uganda Tourism Association, Uganda Community Tourism Association,
Exactly.
Community-Based Tourism Association, and the Uganda Hotels Association. So those are the ones you're talking about.
Exactly.
Okay.
And these ones help in organizing the private sector and come out as a group to lobby if there is need for financing. We have an arrangement called the Presidential Investors Roundtable, where the private sector have come together to lobby government for support. And this is in terms of being able to provide capital, being able to provide tax waivers, being able to help them develop certain products, being able to help them do the training, and so on and so forth. So yes, we want to have a competitive private sector that we do recognize drives the economy in terms of the businesses that they operate. They are the ones that operate the hotels, the tour companies, and the tour guides that provide the service that we require. As government, and through the various arms of government, like through Uganda Tourism Board, we do the marketing of the country outside. Through Uganda Wildlife Authority, we make sure that there are products that would make our people stay longer when they come. So within the national parks, we do encourage the private sector to put up accommodation facilities. And so what, as government, we do is that we make sure that there are products that would make people stay longer. But the services, the attendant services for the people that come are provided by the private sector. So yes, there is a recognition that government plays that residual role, the central government plays the residual role of putting policies in place, but recognizes that the actual business is done by the private sector. And where possible, the private sector is assisted. Recently, through His Excellency the President, we have been running what is called the Presidential Investors Roundtable, recognizing the contribution of these private investors and looking at ways on how best they can be supported to ensure that tourism is actually up there contributing to GDP between 6 and 10% over the years.
One thing, unfortunately, I think I didn't go through to get the facts on the ground is how you tax these particular local investors, the players in the tourism industry. Is the taxation regime favorable to them? I don't know whether Herbert can respond. Is it?
Well, I wouldn't say that they are very, very, very favorable. We already have a lot of complaints. We have many times we have talked to government to reduce the number of taxes. There are very many taxes. Find bed tax, room tax, hotel tax.
Okay, so that just came. Yeah.
So, but there was a very good discussion with government, and there's some good responses. There's been some harmonization, and which was very good. The government has really responded positively, and I think when we continue discussing with government, we definitely shall think our interests.
Yeah, because James, I think that is very necessary to make sure that the investor doesn't feel exhausted
Yes.
with too much of extracting part of their benefit, rather profits that are made through that particular business. Now, Stephen, let me first. I'm going to ask you about still just the full packaging of the marketing, but I think it will not be able to. Well, I will not get the satisfactory response in this particular time that I'm remaining with. Let me go for a break, then come back and we continue to the discussion. Sure. And thanks our viewers for keeping with us. We are discussing the Uganda tourism sector and how the private sector particularly can actually be involved to advance the development targets of this particular country. And we are here in partnership with Cedp. And please keep logged on to this station. We'll go for a break and we'll come back into the discussion. Thanks our viewers for keeping with us. I'm Karagawa Bodwins and we're discussing the tourism sector. I know perhaps you might be out there and say, what's new that we're discussing? But there is a lot of progress that is being done there. And if you feel that there is a contribution you need to make or a clarity on what we're discussing here in the studio, go on Facebook and make a contribution. Just as Julius Nyikirize has posted a response and says that reduce the number of armed forces on the streets of Kampala and improve the security, because tourists always think we are at war as soon as they see heavy deployment on the roads. I think that is directed to the security forces and the central government of our country. Then Patrick says that lower rates to the Ugandans so that they tour those places and tell their friends to go visit too. Secondly, employ people in the tourism sector basing on technical know-how and not technical know-who. And Stephen, that just drives straight into the response I need from you to understand the specific accomplishments that have been made so far by the Uganda Tourism Board. And of course, yeah, because let's leave out the entire general sector, but you, as a representative of the Uganda Tourism Board, in advancing the cause of tourism in this country.
Yeah, that's a very good question, Baldwin. I mean, like I said earlier, tourism has been the fastest growing sector in government. In 10 years, we've seen a leap from close to $400 million to $1.4 billion. There is no sector in this current economy which has had a trajectory of that magnitude. Now, why is that? It's because we have a very good product. We have the best weather on this universe, 27 degrees average, good food, wonderful people. Ugandans have been voted the most friendly and most hospitable people. 10 national parks, 12 game reserves, 30% of the country is covered by water. We have the biggest event on the continent, the Uganda Martyrs, which takes place in a week. 3 million people descend in one area to have an emotional experience. The Uganda Martyrs.
A religious
very religious, emotional. There is no country in Africa which has that number. My brother here talked about, for the first time, we have the first African Birding Expo. Everybody is looking forward to having that event. Why? The only place in 30 minutes you've seen over 40 species.
Which sounds strange because Ugandans here are simply curious and are wondering how do people just assemble to watch birds.
Well, the young ones are becoming sophisticated because of social media and exposure, education, etc.
We have actually a number of people coming up. Women birders, young birders.
Yes.
You know,
locally.
Locally, yes. Quite a number of them
is coming up. I'm just coming from an event where we have been promoting the Renzoris. We've come out with a marketing strategy that looks at how do we take advantage of this vast resource called the Renzori Mountains. 160 kilometers long, 45 kilometers wide. The one of 4 places in the world where you have snow on the equator. But fantastic, rare phenomenon on that mountain. So all of that put together gives us, in a marketing language, the first thing you look at is the product. So we have a very good product. And to the extent that we have a very good product is the extent that we have taken it out there to give it visibility, acceptability, and equity for people to come and see and sample. Now, I will tell you that some of the accomplishments we've done, because we have 50% of the Africa's bird species. We used to have what we call Big Birding Week. We've now gone global. And thanks to Herbert and his team, people are beginning to come, and in November every year we shall be having this event. We are developing that segment called the faith tourism. Traditionally, if you take a pyramid, the largest number of visitors have been domestic. People walking from all over the country, including our neighbors, they come. But we are saying this Uganda Martyrs is the only Uganda Martyrs in the world.
Yes.
And particularly the Catholic Church has 1.2 billion followers
Across the world.
across the world who would want to be in the ranks of Rome and Israel or Mecca, if you like. Now, if we got 100,000 of these people staying for 10 days and paying $250 per night, that essentially brings in $250 million to the economy. That's fantastic. And now, thanks to government, we have now fixed a lot of infrastructure. The army came in Rocco to fix the grounds around the Uganda Martyrs shrine. We are developing the 24+ trails and working with the private sector to create guides. Our hotel sector is beginning to pick up. In the last 2 years alone, we've added over 400 rooms in Kampala. Very good rooms. We have new hotels like the Pearl of Africa, Golden Tulip, Skies. They are already emerging. We've opened up many more hotels in the countryside. Now, one of the things that many people don't know is that Uganda Tourism Board is responsible for quality assurance. We do inspection, we do grading, we do classification, we do licensing and registration of tourist facilities in the whole country. And in the last 3 years alone, we have graded and classified 90 hotels. So now clearly you can come to a place and this is 5, 4, 3, 2 star.
So how does an individual who is visiting one of those places that needs that assurance get to know? Do they put maybe a certificate in the front side of the reception?
And that's again very important, and that's a good question. When we have graded and classified a hotel, we give them a certificate of accomplishment, which is then given as a certificate. It's put on the front entrance of the foyer or the reception area. It clearly shows this lodge or hotel is 5, 4, 3, or 2 star. But behind all of that is a very, very comprehensive requirement list that we give these companies, these institutions. And therefore, we are doing a lot of training, we are doing a lot of sensitization, we are doing a lot of capacity building on even very, very basic things like customer care. How you enter a place and someone greets you. Very, very important. Training the skills. Guides, people must have information of where they are. So alongside that, some of the accomplishments we've done is now we have introduced something called the MICE program. MICE is an acronym for meetings, incentives, conferences, and events. And thanks to government support and the local governments, the Entebbe Municipal Council has given us 14 acres. We are going to build a MICE convention. Now, meetings and conferences and events contribute 16% to our coffers. If you look at the segmentation, it's very important to note that Uganda stands right in the middle of the globe. So you're 4 hours from Southern Africa, 8 hours from Europe, 5 hours from the Middle East. We are accessible 24 hours. Our airline numbers have increased to now over 24 international carriers are coming. Some have doubled frequencies of coming on a daily basis. We've expanded the domestic front. So now you have daily flights to Kisoro, to Kidepo, to Kasese, to Chihihi, to Gulu, to Arua. And now we have even gone further to work with the civil aviation and immigration to create international arrivals in 5 aerodromes and airstrips. So for instance, now you can fly from Arusha or Kigali or wherever, and land in Gulu, and land in Kasese, and be cleared by immigration and URA. So instead of going to Entebbe and then you have to connect, you have removed those tariff barriers that Mr. Otaro has talked about. So some of those are the things we've done. But more importantly, we're also looking at some of the unique things that we have as a country. The mountaineering, the adventure, the things like birding. We're looking at whitewater rafting, bungee jumping, and very interestingly, our nightlife. It's a big seller. Statistics have shown that from Thursday, into the weekend. People are coming in from our neighboring
Tourism
countries
is Uganda's leading
and enjoying
foreign
what we
exchange
have
earner
as a
with
country.
$1.37
So
billion
those are some of the achievements. And because of that, we have brought in foreign media who have come and sampled
Some
our
of the key
places.
attractions
That's why now
include
Lonely
one
Planet,
night
Rough
on
Guides,
endowments,
CNN
and
are rating us very
many
highly
of the
because of the
popular
exposure
tourist
that we've given.
destinations.
And that's thanks to some of the achievements we've done from the planning, the strategies, the private sector engagements, and being able to be visible out there.
Oh, thank you. We apologize about that disruption on the voice that has come up. And Hubbard, so let's just briefly talk about the policy, the establishment of, especially of this industry. Because currently the sector is operating under the 2008 Uganda Tourist Act, which was stipulated to reform, consolidate, and streamline the law relating to tourism. Yeah. So we need to understand, are there some urgent and actionable investments that are needed to be made as to fast track the tourism industry growth? Do you feel that there are some kind of policy areas that need to be refurbished and revised to make sure that there is to fast track this industry growth is done?
Yeah, thank you very much. We really need urgently, when I mean urgently, as of now.
Yes.
We are talking of $1.4 million coming into the country. How much are we putting back? We need visibility. We need to be visible. Like I gave you a percentage that we have 90% of the employed people are dependent on international tourists coming to the country. So we need to be there in the source markets. So we need a serious attention of government on visibility, because we are building on the image, a bad image which we have, the past one, diseases, all sorts of things. So we need to be visible in the source markets. Of course, the pair of farms are coming in, yes. We are talking of 4. Those are not enough. We need more. If we had like maybe 50 countries with direct presence of Ugandan business, I am telling you, we'll have lots of tourists and everybody will be happy. We also need to have, of course, national carrier is important. We need to have Ugandan airlines flying all over the world, because there's a huge traffic between Europe and USA. So if Uganda can also feature there on the airports, I am telling you, Uganda will be seen in those countries. Now, the other thing that is very, very important is that Ugandans must carry their country. We must have a policy that compels these fellows from government that every time they travel, they brand themselves as Ugandan.
True. Yeah.
They must be Ugandans. They must go as Ugandans. For us, when we go, we carry our flags. The other day I was in Ecuador, in Galapagos, with Ugandan flag. And everybody was asking me, is this the ambassador? Who is this person? But I am trying to show people that, by the way, there is a country called Uganda, and it's a very good country. So there should be, that policy should be worked on as soon as possible.
So meaning the dress code, the dress
yes,
material,
we should show that we are
appearance,
Ugandans.
certain style of...
yes, we shouldn't hide ourselves. We shouldn't hide ourselves. We should be proud of being Ugandans, wherever we are.
And it's rare to see that actually we have clothing that is locally made, that is identified. Except I think Gomesi,
whatever it is. Even if you put on a Chikoi,
yes,
it still makes sense.
All right.
But also look at the farm trips should be practical. We need more people to come and see the country themselves. We had the Budding Expo in 2016, but I can assure you that by now we already have about 7 trips booked through the tour operators whom I have talked to, and recently we had a group of 14 people who came back. They came to Uganda, they were very, very happy. Now, if we do it several times, you bring people here to come and see and go back and tell a story on their own. I'm telling you, we shall do a very huge contribution. The other thing I want to talk about, which Stephen was hitting on, is the skills.
Yeah.
We cannot talk tourism if people are not skilled. We must get out of the imaginations and gambling era of thinking that, because actually Stephen makes this statement, tourism is a business for all. No, it's a business for all, yes, but it's not a technical business for everybody.
Yeah.
Technically, we need people who are trained. Like that guy on Facebook was saying, we train hoteliers, train tour managers, train tour guides. Even people who represent the country should be well trained with product knowledge, and they're able to. Then we should have research.
Yeah,
Government should invest money in research. We need to do this market research in the source markets, understand the customer behavior and expectations when they come here, so that we are able to handle them in the way they like. We need to do research on our products. Are they sellable? Can we sell our products in comparing with other countries? We need to have facts. We should do business based on facts. The other one is domestic tourism awareness drive should be by policy, not gambling on it, because we must change our attitude. We must change a culture of holidays. Ask these guys if they take holidays. When they take holidays, where do they go? They go, maybe, these ones, of course, they are aware, but others, they don't go anywhere. They stay around. And we need to have our attitude
just
change.
lastly on that, apologies about to cut you, because you brought in the element of skill development. And I think you are either being answered or you're collaboratively dealing with this. I was told there was a groundbreaking that was being done in Jinja for literally about this same thing, Tourism Training Institute. And I've looked at most of the major countries that are great tourist destinations, Malaysia, Thailand, of course the great Asian tigers besides the traditional ones. And they have massive tourist training schools in hoteling, in hospitality, in all these particular realms. So just talk to us just briefly about 2 minutes about that groundbreaking and the essence of that institute.
Yes, as I talk about it, one would want to know that whereas the Ginger Institute was Uganda's largest source of workers for the hotel industry, it still lagged behind competitors like Kenya Hoteli College. And this was basically because it did not have modern skills, was not providing modern skills, it didn't have the necessary infrastructure and equipment, and probably the latest in terms of the pedagogical skills. So the conditions existing then were that there were poor capabilities of tourism workers that were coming out of this institute. And following a rapid assessment that was carried out by the World Bank, one of the decisions was the priority to develop that institute. And this was also in recognition of the fact that the Tourism Master Plan was also talking of a phased approach to tourism hospitality. And then we also had other instruments that looked at the fact that Ugandans were not competitive, especially with those that were coming from institutes within our neighboring partners. So we recently had a groundbreaking at Jinja, and that was the beginning of the transformation of the Uganda Hotel and Tourism Training Institute into a competitive institution. Now,
so how long do you think it will be fully furnished and ready for use?
It's going to take 12 months.
Okay,
but that's for the hardware.
Okay.
But you'll still need the software, the training of staff, and a host of other things. But in terms of the structure, I think the contractor agreed that we do it in the next 12 months.
Okay.
And that's what took
All right,
place.
just briefly, let me get to Stephen. Just have about 6 minutes. And so, Stephen, what challenges is the tourism board facing in the pursuit of these ambitions, and how are they being managed? Because we, according to the very same tourism sector master plan, the sector's overall aim is to progressively increase the contribution of tourism to GDP through aggressive promotion, as we talked about, diversing tourism product image. So, but I don't think this is all smooth through. What are the bottlenecks you're facing, and how should we deal with them?
Okay, that's a very good question. First and foremost is the fact that Uganda is not very widely known. The best that people know about Uganda is Idi Amin, and that has been the swan song everywhere you go.
The man, the president was here in the 70s.
In the 70s, some people think he's still there. Only 1 month ago, they released a film, 7 days in Entebbe. It's about fighting and all that. So
Israel.
Clearly, there is that negative element. However, with the more visibility, the more people come, the more they see another place. They see fantastic destination, good people. All these ratings that you see, Lonely Planet, Rough Guides, CNN, most friendly, most beautiful, most accommodating, best place to have your children, those begin to give us good feelers. So research has shown that 50% of people's visitation is by word of mouth and by reference. So you come here, enjoy the place, and say, oh man, Uganda is a good place. So you go and tell your people, the Herberts go and market. So the people who come from here then traject the destination as being good. So, as he said, and as I've insisted earlier, is that we need more destination representation at all levels, both in terms of the travel trade, but also media. Media is the biggest perception. So that's very, very important. The other one, of course, is also refers to it, is that negative publicity, especially by travel advisories. An incident happens on the border with Congo, and Uganda is blacklisted. And you find all these websites, and I don't want to mention countries here, saying, oh, don't go to Uganda, it is not safe, da-da-da-da. And before you know it, people are making cancellations. During the Ebola scourge in West Africa, Africa suffered the most. Where Ebola was closer to Europe and America than where it is here. But the perception was that the entire African continent was sick, and that really affected us. The distance from Sierra Leone to Uganda is the same distance as from Vancouver to Cuba in Havana. But the world out there does not see that. So we have now insisted that part of the terms of reference for these companies that are representing us abroad is to ensure that our visibility, our perception, and our ratings outside there are top-notch. And how do you do that? You expose people. People come, bloggers, social media people. You bring people who are doing shooting, whatever. Recently, now we have started engaging international companies. They are going to start doing movies here. Bollywood is interested in shooting movies here. We are working on a policy to ensure that Uganda becomes a tourist film shooting destination. We are trying to create new products like health tourism, build world-class facilities. As we speak right now, there's a group of people from the Emirates. They are saying, how do we run away from the heat?
Yes.
Others are saying, how do we get away from the cold? So give people condos along the lake areas so that they can spend 6 months, having a better whatever. Then, of course, the other one, which is very critical and very quickly, is the issue of funding.
Yes.
Funding is always a challenge. About 2014, when we started this new initiative, UTB was getting only 1.5 billion shillings, about $400,000. That has grown. We continued convincing. You have to show proof that you need more money by using it effectively.
You about 6% to the...
Actually, 10% to GDP. Now, what have we done? Government, from its coffers, has moved the figures from 1.5 billion shillings to 18. And we say thank you, but it's not enough. Our neighbors are spending 10 times more. But we have been strategic. So what did we say? Cedp came in to support us, and they did a fantastic job. We have friends like Trademark East Africa. We have people like WWF, Wildlife Fund, UNDP. And now today we're talking with the Italians. We're talking with the foreign missions and the embassies abroad. And so these synergies are very, very important. Consumer groups, ensuring that we have Budding Expo in Uganda and tapping into all these constituent groups that can come here and give Uganda that visibility. So it's a lot of visibility pushing. Right now, as we speak, today is the launching of the International Tennis Federation. 60 countries are coming here to play tennis. So while they're here, we engage them. We take them out. We give them that exposure. These are the next Federers, the Nadals, who are going to make a difference when they say they're out there and they would want to come. And I can tell you, big names have started coming. Bill Gates was here. All these big names, they come in quietly, but they go back and say, this is the place to be. Lastly, I'll tell you about investment. It's very, very important that we discuss investment. And through the ministry and other partners, we were able to host the Space for Giants Investment Summit. And again, that's opening us to broader visibility. These guys come and invest, but they spend almost 50% of their money is marketing and promoting. So it's synergies, it is strategy, it is being able to gain ground and get more resources into the economy.
Oh, okay, beautiful said. And on that note, because you've been very elaborate, James. And Hubbard, I'll just have to put it to a halt. No final remarks because we are out of time. You know, my young colleagues are really anxious to dance. But thank you so much for your contribution.
But one thing only, that
Yes,
keep Uganda
just
clean.
30 seconds.
Keep Uganda clean.
Okay, that is
Throw bottles out of the window.
Yeah. James, anything in 2 seconds or?
Well, in terms of the issues that have affected us as a country,
Yeah.
in terms of variability and in terms of products, the natural products, the issues of climate change have really affected Uganda. The habitats are being fragmented. We are losing genetic variability and
those are some of the things that need to be intervened in.
Exactly.
In order to make sure our tourism is sustainable.
Yes.
Gentlemen, I want my young people to dance and enjoy
But
themselves.
let them tour the country.
Absolutely.
Encourage Ugandans to go out there and enjoy.
I think there's
Today is Friday. Let them
Exactly.
go out.
They're out there,
But
actually.
And we have a long weekend.
We need a national campaign for cleaning Uganda.
Yeah,
So many
absolutely.
towns are full of garbage and plastics.
Yeah. So it's been a
Everybody's here,
profound
so-
discussion. James Lutalo, the Director of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities, Stephen Asimwe, the Chief Executive Officer, Uganda Tourism Board, and Herbert Byaruhanga, the champion for birds in Uganda, Chairperson, Uganda Safari Guides Association, and Vice President, Uganda Tourism Association. And thanks to Cedp, gentlemen, it was a great pleasure indeed having you.
thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks
Thank
to
you
our
so much.
viewers for indeed being with us through this disruption of normal programming. I'm Karaga Bodwins, and if you're out there with a government or ministry, agency or department, or an NGO or a corporate agency, and you want to have a comprehensive discussion of this kind, please come talk to our sales team, our MD or myself, and we will indeed provide you this platform. Thanks. Otherwise, we're going to have a continuation of our broadcasting with Brian Music Show. I'm Karaga Bodwins. Good night.